Today, we've got OpenAI launching a $4 billion deployment company and a cyber defense platform in the same week. Google turning Android into something much closer to an AI operating system, and Nvidia backing a former DeepMind legend who thinks the next leap comes from trial and error, not just more internet text. So, this is not a quiet week. These are three different versions of the same race. Who controls how AI actually gets used, where it runs, and how it learns next? AI Now, your weekly brief on the intelligence age. This is AI Now. Let's get into it. First up, OpenAI is moving hard into enterprise deployment. According to OpenAI's own announcement on May 11th, the company launched the OpenAI Deployment Company, or DeployCo, with more than $4 billion in initial investment from 19 firms, including TPG, Advent, Bain Capital, Brookfield, Goldman Sachs, and SoftBank. The pitch is straightforward. Frontier models are powerful, but enterprises do not get value just because an API exists. They need workflow redesign, internal integrations, security reviews, change management, and production systems that actually survive contact with the business. DeployCo is OpenAI's answer to that services gap. The important phrase here is forward deployed engineer. That is, the Palantir-style model where engineers sit close to customer teams and build real systems inside their environment. OpenAI also said it agreed to acquire Tomorrow, an applied AI consulting firm, adding roughly 150 forward-deployed engineers from day one. Why does that matter? Because the enterprise AI bottleneck is no longer only model quality. It is getting the model into procurement, compliance, databases, customer support flows, sales tooling, engineering pipelines, and internal policy. OpenAI is signaling that it does not want to be just the model vendor. It wants to be the deployment layer. And then, separately, OpenAI unveiled Daybreak. According to the Next Web and Computer World, Daybreak is a cybersecurity platform with three model tiers, including GPT 5.5, GPT 5.5 Trusted Access for Cyber, and GPT 5.5 Cyber. The partner list includes Akamai, Cisco, Cloudflare, CrowdStrike, Fortinet, Oracle, Palo Alto Networks, and Zscaler. The idea is to use AI for vulnerability discovery, patch generation, and validation. That puts OpenAI directly into the same narrative lane as Anthropic's Mythos effort, which was previewed in April under Project Glasswing and reportedly surfaced thousands of 0 days across major operating systems and browsers. To be clear, not everything in this cyber race is equally public or equally proven. DeployCo is official from OpenAI. Daybreak is reported by outlets including the Next Web and Computer World. Anthropic's Mythos is still in a more limited preview-style posture. The bigger pattern is confirmed. The major labs are trying to turn frontier models into defensible enterprise platforms. What to watch next? Customer traction. If DeployCo signs major accounts in Q3, this becomes more than a services arm. It becomes OpenAI's wedge into long-term enterprise infrastructure. Also watch Anthropic. It already announced a joint venture with Blackstone, H&F, and Goldman Sachs on May 4th, and Daybreak puts pressure on Anthropic to widen access to Mythos. Story 2. Google is putting Gemini at the center of Android. According to TechCrunch, Google announced Gemini intelligence features at Android Show I/O Edition on May 12th, ahead of Google I/O next week. CNBC framed it as Google racing to show Android's AI progress before Apple's expected AI reboot at WWDC in June. The practical update is agentic AI across Android. That means Gemini can move between apps, understand screen context, fill forms using personal intelligence, browse the web automatically, and complete multi-step tasks. The example category is easy to understand. Read a grocery list from one app, build a cart in another, then ask for approval before checkout. This is the shift from chatbot to operating layer. Instead of opening a chat window and asking for help, the assistant starts to sit across the device. It sees more context, acts across more surfaces, and turns intent into actions. That is powerful, but it also raises the obvious reliability question. Does it do the right thing, in the right app, with the right permission boundary? Google also showed vibe-coded Android widgets, where users can create widgets through natural language. It introduced Rambler and Gboard for AI speech transcription, and Gemini is moving into Chrome for web page question and answer. The connective tissue is clear. Phone, keyboard, browser, and eventually the car all become Gemini surfaces. The strategic line from Android head Samir Samat is the one to remember. Google is moving from an operating system to an intelligent system. That is a big claim, but the direction matches the product map. Android is no longer just managing apps and files. Google wants it to manage tasks. Then there is the DeepMind piece. Google DeepMind published work on an AI-enabled mouse pointer, described as a reimagining of the pointer for the AI era. The project lays out 4 interaction principles: maintain flow, show and tell, embrace the power of this and that, and turn pixels into actionable entities. That sounds abstract until you picture it. Instead of naming every object or copying context into a prompt, you point at something on screen and say, "Fix this," or "Show me directions," or "Summarize that." DeepMind says the AI pointer is integrated into Chrome and Google Book, which makes the browser and laptop part of the same interaction model. Why it matters. This is a serious HCI bet. The mouse pointer has been with us for decades because it is precise, simple, and universal. If Google can make pointing semantic, not just spatial, it changes how people command software. The watch item is whether these agentic features are reliable in production, not just on stage, and how much more Google reveals at I/O next week. Story 3. Nvidia is backing a very different path to advanced AI. According to CNBC, Nvidia announced an engineering-level partnership with Ineffable Intelligence, the London-based startup founded by David Silver, the former lead of DeepMind's reinforcement learning team and a professor at University College London. Silver's resume matters here. He was central to the DeepMind reinforcement learning work behind AlphaGo, AlphaZero, and MuZero. Those systems were not famous because they copied human text. They learned strategies through interaction, search, and feedback. That is the core thesis now being scaled up. Reinforcement learning means models learn by trial and error in an environment. They take actions, receive feedback, and discover strategies through experience. Ineffable is reportedly pursuing superlearners, systems that learn continuously from experience rather than relying mainly on human-generated data. The Nvidia piece is strategic. CNBC reports that the companies will co-design infrastructure for large-scale reinforcement learning using Nvidia's Grace Blackwell chips and Vera Rubin platform. Jensen Huang called this the next frontier of AI, according to the briefed reporting, and the hardware angle is not incidental. Nvidia dominated the transformer training era because its GPUs became the default substrate for scaling large models. If the next frontier is reinforcement learning at massive scale, Nvidia wants to make sure its systems are also the default for that paradigm. This is not just an investment story, it is a platform positioning story. The capital numbers are also loud. Ineffable raised a record $1.1 billion seed round in April, co-led by Sequoia and Lightspeed, with participation from Nvidia, Google, DST Global, Index, and the UK Sovereign AI Fund. CNBC also reported that Recursive Superintelligence, founded by former DeepMind engineer Tim Rocktaschel, raised $650 million on the same day. Why it matters. Top researchers are leaving big labs to test alternative routes to superintelligence. OpenAI and Anthropic are still heavily associated with scaling frontier models and enterprise systems. Silver's camp is making a more direct bet on experience, environments, and self-improvement. What to watch next is simple. Does Ineffable show a working prototype in 2026? And does it demonstrate capabilities that are hard to explain through standard pre-training alone? Also watch whether more DeepMind alumni follow this route, and whether OpenAI or Anthropic respond with more visible RL-first research programs. So the recap. OpenAI is building beyond models into deployment and cyber defense. Google is trying to make Gemini the intelligence layer across Android, Chrome, and new interaction surfaces. And Nvidia is betting that the next training paradigm may look less like reading the web and more like learning through experience. Next week, Google I/O, and we'll know whether Mythos is finally escaping its cage. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a week in the AI revolution. See you in the next brief.